triplet brothers vanished in 1979 in the town of Clear Creek, Texas. 30 years later, their mother spots a clue in an old photograph that could reveal the truth behind their disappearance. In the summer of 1979, the town of Clear Creek, Texas, a scattering of low-slung houses, a single gas station, and a few dusty side roads, felt like any other small town. People knew one another, and strangers were noted within minutes of stepping off a bus. For Lana Abbott, life seemed uncomplicated. She was 28 years old, married to Jack Abbott, a man whose honest blue eyes and slow smile had captivated her when they first met in high school. They lived on the edge of town in a modest ranch-style house with white wooden siding and a porch that creaked when someone leaned on the railing. It was perfect. That comfort shattered the day her identical triplet sons, Finn, Noah, and Sam, vanished without a trace. Lana remembered that morning with painful clarity. It was June 22, 1979, a Friday. The sun rose early over the flat West Texas plains, light shimmering against window panes. In most ways, the day was ordinary. Jack had gone to work at the local oil rig around dawn. The boys, Finn, Noah, and Sam, had woken her at 6, their voices overlapping in excited chatter about exploring the fence line behind their home. They were 7 years old, curious, rambunctious, always pushing boundaries. She'd made them breakfast, pancakes cut into rectangles, scrambled eggs, orange juice, then kissed each on the forehead. When Jack left for the rig, Lana reminded the boys to stay in the backyard and not wander beyond the fence. She watched them through the kitchen window after he drove away. Finn chased a grasshopper along the patio. Noah kicked a soccer ball against the wooden gate. Sam dug at a patch of dirt near the old oak tree. She sighed, closing her book, an old romance she'd read half a dozen times, and went back to the sink to wash dishes. It wasn't until nearly 9 that she glanced out again. The boys were nowhere to be seen. Calling for them, she stepped outside in her shabby cotton dress, wiping her hands on a dish towel. At first, she thought they'd gone into the house, maybe to watch cartoons. But the sliding back door stood wide open. The TV was off, the couch pillows tossed haphazardly. She walked through the living room, calling their names. No one answered. Panic spiked, hard and sudden. Fists clenched, she sprinted toward the backyard. The grass was flattened where they'd run earlier, but now it was empty. The gate was slightly ajar, as if someone had nudged it. Her heart slammed. She called Jack at work, voice cracking, but his hands were in heavy gloves tightening a valve, and he didn't hear his phone at first. By the time he returned her call, he could hear panic in her tone, could feel urgency in the words, "They're gone." He dropped everything and sped home, tires kicking up dust. In those first frantic hours, the Abbotts combed the property, questioned neighbors, called the sheriff. Children in town joined in, 7-year-olds circling houses on bicycles, scanning fences for a glimpse of their friends. But there was no trace, no footprints beyond the fence, no notes, no witnesses who had seen suspicious figures. It was as if the boys had simply vanished into thin air. The sheriff's investigation proved fruitless. The fence line was intact. No footprints ran into the desert. The local wells, few and far between, were tested, though no signs of drowning or struggle emerged. A neighbor swore he saw something, a black van parked by the fence around dawn, but his recollections fizzled when pressed. Was it a van? Truck. And why hadn't he said anything before? The days blurred. A hospital, a police station, canvassing the dusty roads. Journalists came from Odessa and Lubbock, hoping for a scoop. Lana endured interviews, her eyes puffy, her voice hollow. She clung to the word missing like a lifeline, thinking they would be found at any moment. But days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. By autumn, hope felt precarious. Lana spent nights awake, replaying every detail. Her husband's lullaby as he tucked the boys in the night before, the boys' laughter as they chased one another. Every sound frightened her. A creak in the floorboard, a sudden knock on the door. She kept a photo of the three of them on a mantel, identical cheeks, bright eyes, mouths twisted into crooked grins. Often she'd stare at it and imagine them walking in the front door, calling Mama, as though nothing had happened. But as months slipped away, that image began to warp into a distant dream. Neighbors whispered of curses, of something ancient stirring in the wind-swept scrub. Children were warned to stay inside at dusk. Some parents took them out of town. But the reality was that life carried on. Jack returned to the oil rig, worked longer hours in the hopes of keeping his mind occupied. The town tried to forget as best it could. Clear Creek was small, but it was no stranger to tragedy. They mumbled sympathy and moved on. In their hearts, Lana and Jack did not move on. They grew distant. Jack buried himself in work. Lana stopped eating, running fingers through her hair until it thinned. 5 years later, Jack could not bear the constant reminder of what they had lost. He filed for divorce, moved into a single-wide trailer 30 miles away. Lana stayed behind, her life tethered to that memory on the mantel. In 1985, she transferred the photograph into a small silver locket she wore constantly, opening it at night to stare at her sons' faces. The little ranch house had decayed, peeling paint, a sagging porch, weeds overtaking the yard. Yet she could not bear to leave. For 30 years, the word missing loomed over her life like a storm cloud threatening to break. She'd made a career out of searching, keeping the memory of her boys alive by volunteering with missing persons groups, giving interviews to journalists, chasing rumors any time one surfaced. She attended support groups, hosted fundraisers, and pinned flyers across West Texas. Addis, a tiny town half an hour away, served as her headquarters, its laundromat bathroom stalls plastered with "Have you seen these boys?" flyers. She became something of a local legend, a grieving mother who refused to let go. Some pitied her, others called her obsessed. She didn't care. She'd never given up. June 15, 2009, Clear Creek, Texas. Nearly 30 years to the day since her sons disappeared, Lana found herself sifting through a box of old photographs in the attic. The July heat pressed against the roof. Dust motes danced in the single beam of sunlight that fell through the small window. She lifted a framed picture of her boys in front of a carnival tent, summer fair still echoing in the background. That was 1978, 1 year before. They wore matching red t-shirts and denim shorts, chewing cotton candy, their faces smeared in sugar and dirt. She snapped a photo of the image with her smartphone, digitally archiving every photograph she owned, and placed it on the dusty wooden beam. Then she reached for an envelope stuffed with Polaroids. For years, she'd stored them in this box, never bothering to sort them. Her hand shook as she slid out a Polaroid dated June 21, 1979. It was taken at the family's old backyard cookout. Jack's side of the family had come over, and someone had decided to snap candid shots of the kids splashing in a small inflatable pool. The three boys wore matching swim trunks, their hair plastered to their foreheads as they beamed at whoever held the camera. That photo had haunted her for decades. It had been her last proof that they'd ever existed. But at the bottom of the envelope lay another Polaroid she didn't recognize immediately, sepia-toned, slightly faded, date scrawled on the back in Jack's handwriting, June 20th, 1979. Town picnic. How she had missed this picture, she didn't know. For 30 years, she had kept hundreds of photographs, yet this one had slipped past. The Polaroid showed the town square, a few dozen families lounging under cloth canopies, stalls selling lemonade and homemade pies. In the center, a small stage had been erected for square dancing. A banner overhead read Clear Creek Summer Jubilee. She could see Mayor Thompson, rotund and jovial, handing a blue ribbon to a young girl with a beaming grin. And off to the right, Near a white picket fence that lined the far edge of the square were her sons. They were huddled together, arms around each other's shoulders, looking toward the photographer. Their faces were lit with innocent excitement. She froze. For a moment, she let the image sink in, the banner, the crowd, the sun glinting off the metal folding chairs. But something in the background caught her attention, a flicker of movement just behind the fence, a tall figure standing alone, half hidden behind a wooden post. He or she couldn't tell, wore a dark, wide-brimmed hat that shaded the face. Hands were tucked into pockets. The figure watched the crowd, motionless. It was too indistinct to discern whether it was a man or a woman, a local or a stranger. Yet something about the stance bothered her, too still, too patient. It felt defibrillate practiced, as though the figure knew exactly where to stand to be unseen. For 30 years, Lana had pored over every inch of those Polaroids. In her mind, she had hunted for clues, stray footprints in dirt paths, half-glimpsed shadows near abandoned barns. But this photograph had never resurfaced. She could have sworn she'd scanned every image after 1979. Yet here it was, hidden away until now. How could she have missed it? Who'd taken it? And why had it ended up in a jumble of forgotten Polaroids? Her heart raced. She blew on the image, clearing away dust flecks. With a trembling finger, she traced the fence line, then the silhouette of the observer behind it. She felt heat rise in her cheeks, part excitement, part dread. It couldn't be a coincidence that this image remained unseen for 3 decades only to appear now, on the brink of the disappearance's 30th anniversary. Lana snapped the Polaroid into her phone's camera again, zooming in on the figure behind the fence. It made her skin crawl, like finding a needle in a haystack. That figure had been there all along, present on the day before her sons vanished, watching. She wanted to be Fineve. It was someone benign, maybe the head of the town's local newspaper, snapping photos for an article. Yet the isolation of the figure, their body language, told her otherwise. She felt an anger clawed in her chest. How many times had she driven by that very fence, that same angle, never thinking to look? In the 3 decades prior, no one had noticed. How many eyes had scanned this photograph, oblivious? Lana tucked the Polaroid into her bra and climbed down the ladder, mind refinning. She grabbed her keys and drove into town, determined to find whoever had taken that photograph. The sun dropped low, casting long shadows across Highway 83 as she sped toward the old town hall. Its brick facade looked the same as it had in 1979, cracked stone steps leading to double doors of weathered oak. She parked and climbed the steps 2 at a time, adrenaline hammering in her chest. The receptionist at the front desk, a middle-aged woman named Shirley, looked up from a sheaf of papers as Lana burst through the door. "I need to see the records of who took town event photos in June of 1979, Lana said, voice taut. Shirley rose with some difficulty, straightening her floral blouse. "Let me see if I can find the photograph archives ledger," she said, disappearing into a hallway lined with filing cabinets. The clerk returned with a faded binder, its cover reading 1979, records of town photographer, events, dates, names. She flipped through pages, passing over wedding shots, 4th of July fireworks, livestock shows. "Here," Shirley said, pointing to a smudged entry, June 20th, 1979, Summer Jubilee. Photographer L. Hawthorne. Beneath that line was a note, Polaroid snapshots for local archives, copies sent to Abbott family on request. There was no address, no phone number. Only L. Hawthorne. Wedding photographers were often itinerants, but for the town picnic, they'd hired someone local, Hawthorne. Shirley added in a hushed tone, "He owns a camera shop over on Main, but he's been gone since the 80s. I think he moved away, or maybe passed on." Lana's mind spun. Hawthorne. She'd never heard that name. She wondered if Jack knew. She turned to Shirley. Do you know anything more? Family? Where he went? The receptionist shook her head. I'm not sure. Folks say he was a little strange, kept to himself. Sold a shop in '82 and disappeared. Last I heard, he had relatives up in Amarillo. Lana thanked her and left. Back in her car, she replayed the name L. Hawthorne. She typed it into her phone's search, though she doubted any results would appear for a man who'd been gone for nearly 30 years. Sure enough, no relevant matches. Only a few genealogical bulletin board posts speculating that Luther Hawthorne's family had moved to Amarillo in the late 60s. She clicked on one post. A user named Texas Roots 1978 said, I found a Luther Hawthorne in the Amarillo phone book in 1983. Lived at 312 Pecan Drive. Occupation listed as artist. The post was dated 2005. That address might no longer be valid. Amarillo had grown, streets renumbered. Her pulse fluttered. She stared at the phone, wondering if Hawthorne still lived. June 16, 2009, Amarillo, Texas. By dawn, she was already on the road, driving north on I-27. The sky shifted from lavender to brilliant amber. Sunlight glinted off wind turbines rising like silent sentinels in the distance. Time seemed to stretch as she navigated through Amarillo's grid of streets, eventually finding Pecan Drive, a narrow street lined with modest bungalows. She found 312 Pecan Drive, its front yard overrun by untrimmed hedges and a single battered mailbox labeled Hawthorne. She parked and stared at the house, peeling paint, a sagging porch, boards across the windows. No movement, no sign of life. Had he left? She circled the house, peering through dusty windows, saw nothing but overturned furniture, dusty floors, a layer of grime across every surface, as though someone had walked away in a hurry decades ago. She approached the front porch, heart pounding. A faded note was pinned to the door with a yellowed thumbtack. I'm gone. Look for me where the water meets the fire. The edges of the paper were brittle, curling inward, as if the sun had baked it for years. Water meets the fire. What could that mean? She held her breath, tracing letters with trembling fingers. It was like a riddle, a clue left behind. What place in Amarillo or Clear Creek combined water and fire? She knocked anyway, but no one answered. She circled back to her car, mind racing. The note felt ancient, weathered by time, but was clearly Hawthorne's handwriting. If he'd intended her to find it, what was he saying? She typed the phrase into her voice recorder. Water meets the fire. Look for me. She pressed play, listening to the distorted echo of her own voice. Then she drove to the Amarillo Fire Museum, a tourist attraction housed in an old firehouse near the downtown square. She parked in a dusty lot and stared at the building. Classic red brick, stained glass windows depicting firefighters in various heroic poses. Was this the fire Hawthorne meant? And if so, what was the water? Inside, the museum was cool and dim. Shelves showcased brass helmets, antique hoses, photographs of fire crews from the 1920s and 30s. She approached an elderly man behind the counter, gray-haired, stooped, wearing a volunteer's red volunteer fire chief's cap. I'm looking for any information on a photographer named Luther Hawthorne, Lana said. He left a note. Look for me where the water meets the fire. Do you know if that refers to this place? The man's eyes narrowed as he shrugged. Hawthorne, don't recall any photographer here. But water meeting fire. You might want to check the water tower out back. This used to be the site of the old fire station, lived over a well. They pumped water to the bells. Hawthorne could be referring to the well house, where the water met the fire engines in old days. He pointed toward a rusted metal staircase leading to a door marked Authorized Personnel Only. The old pump room is that way, he said. It's been restored. Folks don't come around much. Lana thanked him and climbed the steps, heart pounding. The door creaked as she pushed it open. Inside was a brick-walled room, damp and cool. Old rusted pumps stood silent, their valves locked in place. A wooden beam above was inscribed with faded chalk markings, "Emergency Water Access, 1923." She traced her hand along the beam, dust falling on her palm. Something on the floor caught her eye, a Polaroid, half buried under chunks of plaster. She stooped, plucked it free, and blew on it. It was Hawthorne himself, standing in the courtyard where the water tower loomed behind him, face half hidden beneath that same wide-brimmed hat. The date scrawled on the back read, June 22nd, 1979. Her breath caught. He'd been here on the day the boys vanished. In the Polaroid, he pointed toward the sky, where a storm cloud bloomed on the horizon. The note was scribbled on the back. The next clue lies where memories drown in flame. Her head spun. She snapped the image with her phone and ran her finger over the phrase, "Memories drown in flame." If the first clue was a play on water and fire, this third came like a riddle. She straightened, heart pounding in her ears. What could "memories drown in flame" mean in Clear Creek? The old grain mill? The bonfire pit by the fairgrounds? Her mind raced with possibilities. Ignoring the pump room's dusty stairwell, she fled the fire museum and drove back to Clear Creek. A storm was gathering over the plains now, thunderheads boiling above the horizon. She felt as though she were being drawn into a vortex of secrets, each clue pushing her forward, deeper into a puzzle that had lain dormant for 30 years. What Hawthorne had known, what he'd chosen to hide in riddles, was now fulfilling her desperation. By the time she reached her house on the edge of town, dusk was settling. She climbed the narrow staircase to the attic and sat on the dusty floor, spreading out photographs and Polaroids around her. The original Polaroid, the one with her sons and the silent figure behind the fence, rested in the center. To the left lay the Polaroid from the pump room, Hawthorne pointing at the water tower. To the right, the note from his front door, its cryptic clue like a knife twisting in her gut. She took a deep breath, grabbed a pencil, and jotted down notes. June 20th, 1979. Hawthorne photographs town picnic in Clear Creek. Sons appear in frame, figure behind fence. June 21st, 1979. Backyard cookout Polaroid. Last image before disappearance. June 22nd, 1979. Hawthorne photographed at Amarillo Fire Museum Pump House. Left note, "Memories drown in flame." 3 consecutive days. 3 images, each one connected, yet fractured. It placed Hawthorne at the center of the story. Was he a voyeur? A recorder? Something darker? Why had he returned to Amarillo that very day? She felt a surge of adrenaline. She needed to know more about Hawthorne's life, his motives, his secrets. And most of all, she needed to know what happened to her boys. She snapped open the locket around her neck, lifting the silver cover to stare at her sons' faces once more. "I won't let this go," she whispered. "I promise." The attic was silent except for the distant rumble of thunder. As she traced the faces of Finn, Noah, and Sam, she imagined their voices again, 3 identical, overlapping pleas that still echoed in her memory. She folded the new Polaroid Hawthorne left in the pump room, his silent invitation to the past, into the locket alongside the carnival photo. Then she arranged the photographs on the floor, gazing at each in turn, the photo from the picnic, the cookout, the pump room. Her cell phone buzzed, Jack Abbott calling for the first time in years. She picked up, voice steady but trembling. He asked if she was okay. She told him she'd found something. A clue. He made no comment, only asked if she wanted him to come over. She hesitated. It would be the first time she'd seen him since the divorce in '85. But the thought of him by her side, of an extra pair of eyes and hands to sift through these clues, felt both comforting and frightening. She looked at the door to the attic. The last light of day filtered through the dusty window pane. She pictured Jack driving up the gravel driveway, stepping out of his truck. Would he befriend her? Would he laugh off her obsession? She stared at the Polaroids. This time, she would not be deterred. The photograph had resurrected hope. There was a chance, slim perhaps, but a chance to solve the greatest mystery of her life. "Come," she said quietly into the phone. "I found something. I need your help." As she hung up, the first raindrops tapped against the roof. She sank back onto her haunches, arranging the photographs like sacred relics. One by one, she studied them in the growing gloom. The storm rolled in closer. Thunder rattled the glass. In the corners of the attic, shadows lengthened, as though the past itself crowded around her. And behind every photograph lay 3 missing boys, her sons, waiting for someone to lift the veil and bring them home. At the attic window, thunder cracks. As lightning flickers, she thinks she sees movement, a brief silhouette of a child's face pressed against the glass, but when she blinks, it's gone. She shakes her head. Exhaustion. Overwrought nerves. Yet under the flickering light, she could have sworn she heard a whisper, "Mama." The thunderstorm rattled Clear Creek all night. Rain pounded the roof, and wind howled around the corners of the old house. Lana barely slept. She lay on the couch in the living room. Polaroids clutched to her chest, waiting for Jack to arrive. He showed up at dawn, his hair grayed, clothes rumpled. He stepped through the doorway without a word, eyes trained in the photograph spread across the coffee table. "I heard you found something," he said in a low voice. She nodded, pointing to the photograph of Hawthorne at the pump house. "He was here on June 22nd, 1979. He took this picture. Left a note." Jack leaned forward, studying the Polaroid as though it belonged to someone else. "He's pointing at that water tower," Lana said. "He wanted me to see it." And his note, the one at his house, "Water meets the fire." I think it was a clue. He wanted me to find him. Jack scratched his beard, eyes flicking to the note from Hawthorne's door. "Do we know if he's still alive?" Lana lifted her phone. "I tried to call once, but no one picked up. The house looks abandoned, but I found this note on the door. I think he left it for me." He exhaled slowly. "We'll figure it out. But first, we need to piece together what he knew. Do you have any idea why Hawthorne took pictures of the boys on the picnic day? And why he was in Amarillo on June 22nd? She swallowed. "I don't know. But the timing is too precise. June 20th, picnic. June 21st, cookout. June 22nd, he's here. It's like he was following something. Maybe he saw something at the picnic that pointed him toward Amarillo." Jack considered that. "I don't like this. What if he was involved in their disappearance?" Lana's eyes narrowed. "That's what I'm afraid of. But if he was involved, why give clues? Why hide notes? It doesn't make sense." Jack picked up the photo of the boys at the picnic, squinting at the fence behind them. "Who's that figure? You said you couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman." She pointed. "Look closely." The brim of the hat cast a shadow. The shoulders are broad, male shoulders, I think. See how the coat falls? I've enlarged it on my phone. It looks like a trench coat. Jack tapped the image on her screen. This might be a stretch, but could that be someone disposing of something? Like a bag behind a fence, though it's too small to tell. They both sat in the dim light, rain drumming on the windows. Jack said, "We need to find Hawthorne. If he's alive, maybe he'll talk." She nodded. "I thought the same. But his address in Amarillo, it's useless now. The house looks abandoned. Jack reached for his jacket and keys. I'll drive you. We'll search the surrounding blocks. Maybe there's a relative or someone who remembers him. Lana zipped up her windbreaker and stepped outside. Rain fell in sheets. Car headlamps bobbed through the gloom as Jack's truck pulled to the curb. She climbed in. The cab smelled of old leather and pine-scented air freshener. Jack waited until she was buckled before driving off. As they headed west toward Amarillo, the highway stretched out in a blur of headlights and raindrops. Lana's mind replayed the photograph, the silent figure behind the fence, watching. She turned to Jack. Do you remember anything about that weekend? He shook his head. I was on the rig, 12-hour shifts. Spent Friday night in Midland. You took the boys to the picnic on your own. She stared out the window. I can't believe I never remembered meeting Hawthorne there. Maybe I did, but I didn't notice him. Jack touched her arm. It's not your fault. 30 years ago, you had 3 7-year-olds running around. Kids are magnets for strangers. If someone hung back, you wouldn't notice. She let out a shaky breath. Still, I should have seen something. Jack gave her a gentle squeeze. Let's focus on now. We find Hawthorne. We ask questions. If he's alive, maybe he'll tell us what he saw. June 17th, 2009, Amarillo, Texas. The next morning, with the storm finally spent, Lana and Jack returned to 312 Pecan Drive. Daylight revealed a dilapidated gray house, its faded shutters hanging off their hinges. They approached cautiously. The front door, the one with the cryptic note, was latched but not locked. Jack knelt, prying under the latch with a screwdriver he carried in his truck. Be ready for anything, he muttered. The door swung inward with a groan. Dust motes rose in the shaft of sunlight streaming through the broken windows. The living room was frozen in time, a sagging sofa, the remnants of a coffee table littered with Polaroids, and a battered floor lamp that leaned precariously. The wallpaper had yellowed, peeling in the corners. The stale odor, mildew and rotting wood, hung heavy in the air. They split up. Jack moved to the left toward what must have been the kitchen. Lana went right, toward a narrow hallway leading to the back of the house. She passed a framed landscape painting, cornfields beneath a stormy sky, then entered a small room lined with shelves full of books. Many were photography manuals, advanced darkroom techniques, portraiture in natural light, 35mm cameras for professionals. Most bore notes in the margins, sketches of lighting setups, scribbled reminders. On a small table sat an open notebook beside a Polaroid camera. She knelt, thumbed through the notebook. Handwritten entries dated from the early 70s to 1979. The last entry, in barely legible scrawl, read, June 22nd. Must finish project. Found new lead in Clear Creek. Photos completed. Tomorrow, but leave for Oklahoma? No. Amarillo is closer. Mother lives there. No. Perhaps no one will notice my absence. Must hide the negatives where fire and water meet. Her pulse quickened. Jack, she called. He appeared at the doorway, eyebrows raised. She showed him the notebook. He was planning to disappear. Hide his negatives. But what was his project? What lead? Jack scanned the room. He took photographs of you and the boys. Maybe he was pursuing some secret story. But the notebook suggests he didn't want anyone to find his work. They moved to the next room, a small bedroom stripped of curtains. On the floor sat a metal trunk, its lid locked shut. Lana found a key hanging on a hook near the door. It had a small brass tag that read 1979. With trembling hand, she inserted the key. The trunk clicked open. Inside, layers of old newspapers protected a stack of Polaroids and negatives wrapped in wax paper. She lifted the top Polaroid. It was of her sons, but not from the picnic. This one showed them at a remote stretch of highway outside town, standing before an abandoned gas station with windows boarded and a gas pump still standing like a rusted sentinel. It was dated June 21st, 1979, the day before the disappearance. Why hadn't she seen this before? The gas station was notorious, closed since the 60s due to persistent rumors of hauntings. Townsfolk said folks driving late at night would hear whispers inside the building. No one went by it anymore. Jack flipped through the Polaroids. "This is new to me," he said. "Why would he take pictures here? And more importantly, why would he hide them?" Lana pressed her palm to the photo, studying the boys' gazes. They looked uneasy, as though they had sensed something behind the camera. Behind them, half hidden in the shadows of the building, was that same figure, wide-brimmed hat, trench coat, motionless. The outline was clearer, taller than the boys, arms at the sides, face impossible to make out. As she removed the wax paper, she saw a stack of black and white negatives tied with twine. She felt heat rise in her cheeks. Whatever they held would be the key. Jack peered at the curled edges. "Should we develop these? I want to see what's on them." She nodded, heart pounding. "Yes, I have a scanner in Clear Creek. Let's get back tonight. Develop them." He closed the trunk. "We should be careful. If someone else wants these, we may not be alone." She swallowed hard, scanning the empty room. The silence felt heavy, as though it were holding its breath. She shivered, the memory of thunder still clinging to her nerves. They gathered the negatives, wrapped them carefully in wax paper, and left the trunk alone. In the living room, she noticed a battered calendar on the wall, marked up through 1979. The month of June was circled in red, with jagged pen marks around the dates between the 18th and 23rd. At the bottom of the page, Hawthorne had scribbled, "Project complete." One more day. No signature, just those 3 words. Underneath, another entry. After that piece, Jack stared at that entry as if it were a dying man's testament. "I don't like this." He may have hoped to end something, or keep something hidden. She nodded. Or maybe he knew he was in danger. And he hid all his work before it was too late. They backed out of the house carefully, locking the front door behind them. Outside, the morning sun had given way to a gray haze. The world felt colder, emptier. They loaded the negatives into Jack's briefcase and drove back to Clear Creek in silence. June 17th, 2009, Clear Creek, Abbott House. That afternoon, they arrived at Lana's friend Marcy's photography studio, an old converted barn on the outskirts of town. Marcy, a stout woman in her 50s, greeted them from behind a counter near the entrance. "Lana? Jack? This is a surprise. What brings you here?" Lana handed over the negatives. "We need these developed now. It's urgent." Marcy hesitated, eyes flicking from Jack to the briefcase. "These look old." "They're from 1979, Lana said. "Polaroids and negatives found in Amarillo. We need to see what's on them. Can you develop them today?" Marcy nodded solemnly. "It'll take at least 4 hours with chemicals and drying. But if it's urgent, I'll work straight through." They watched as she carried the trunk into the darkroom. The red glow of the safety light cast a faint crimson hue. Outside, the two sat on a bench by the studio's porch, rain-soaked grass at their feet. Jack stretched and yawned. "You think there's more than just pictures of the boy?" Lana shook her head. "Maybe. But look at this." She pulled out the Polaroid from the trunk, the one of Hawthorne by the water tower. He wasn't just a photographer. He was protecting or hiding something. We saw the note, "Memories drown in flame." I have no idea what it means. But what if the negatives are the missing piece? Jack leaned forward. "We should consider that someone might be following you. I'll call off work for a few days. We need to focus. I agree, she said. I'll call Alex at the local archives tomorrow. Maybe he can help with town records, old newspapers, anything about Hawthorne or this gas station. They fell silent, listening to the raindrops on the studio roof. Lana's mind flickered back to the attic, her son's faces, the photographs strewn like breadcrumbs. Each clue pointed to something bigger than she'd ever imagined. And now, with Jack by her side, she felt both terrified and relieved. Terrified of what they might uncover, and Arfin if she wouldn't face it alone. June 17th, 2009, 6 p.m., Marcy's studio. Marcy opened the darkroom door, beckoning them inside. It's ready. She pulled on white gloves and carried 2 trays of glossy prints. Lana's heart pounded as she took the first print. Her breath caught. The first negative was of her son standing in Clear Creek's town square at the picnic. But this print was not like the faded Polaroid. They were standing in a different position, closer to the white picket fence. The figure behind the fence was clearer now. The hat cast shadows across the face, but the shape of a man's nose was visible, slightly hooked. His eyes, though obscured by shadow, seemed to glint. His trench coat looked worn, threadbare at the elbows. As Lana stared, her hand trembled. There was something in his stance, arms folded, shoulders squared. He was watching the boys not with curiosity, but with intent. Marcy nudged her. Here's the other print from this roll. Lana took it. It showed the boys at the abandoned gas station. They huddled close to one another, mouths parted as though whispering. Behind them, partially obscured by the shadow of a boarded window, was that same man. But his form was more distinct, an angular jaw, pursed lips, deep-set eyes. He stood near the gas pump, one hand resting on the nozzle as though waiting to fill a can. A faded emblem on his hat suggested he might have worked for a trucking company or been a traveler. But why was he there? The gas station had been closed since 1968. Nobody went there anymore, unless to tell ghost stories. Lana lifted the next print. It was from the cookout, the inflatable pool in her backyard, rings of rubber. Her son shrieked with laughter. Water droplets flicked into the air. Nothing unusual at first glance. But in the background, behind the oak tree, was a flash of movement, another figure. Just a corner of a hat, a blurred shoulder. The print's edges blurred, but the presence was undeniable. He was there too, watching the boys. Marcy held up another print. This one is from the pump house in Amarillo. Lana took it. Hawthorne stood there, stern face peering at the camera lens as lightning flickered behind. The water tower loomed overhead, a bulging metal cylinder. In his hand, he held a brown envelope with a red wax seal. The scattered papers at his feet looked like more Polaroids. Lana's breath caught. That was the very envelope she'd found in his front room, empty. She slid the print onto the table, staring at Hawthorne's face, now so alive and present. His eyes held a flicker of fear or defiance. Jack pointed at the print. Look at his feet. See how the ground is charred around a base of the water pump. Lana leaned in, wiping away a smudge. There were scorch marks, like someone had set fire to the wood near the base. She felt a chill. Was that what Hawthorne meant by memories drown in flame? That something here had been burned? If so, the evidence could have been destroyed. Marcy turned down the dim red light. I have more. She pulled out another envelope of negatives. He had 2 rolls. I've printed the first. These are the second roll. Lana felt her pulse spike. She took the next print. It was a close-up of the fence at the picnic, but the image was blurred. Splotches of black ink marred the negative. Whoever developed it must have burned it, or attempted to. The print showed charred edges as if someone had tried to eradicate the figure. But those black ink splotches formed a crude crosshair over the man's face. Someone didn't want that face seen. Jack picked up the next print. This looks like the cookout again, but he tried to erase something here too. The photo of the inflatable pool bore burn marks across the boys' faces, as though someone had held a cigarette over the negative. The edges curled, charred a dull brown, but through the burn, faint outlines remained. Lana's voice was a whisper. Someone tried to destroy these, but they didn't succeed. Marcy placed the last print on the table. It was the water tower scene, Hawthorne standing near the pump house. This time, the negative had been soaked in vinegar. Silver stains bloomed across the surface, dissolving parts of the image. But where the stains faded, she saw something new. Behind Hawthorne, carved into the base of the tower, were letters. She leaned close and saw, "I see lips lie." Underneath, scrawled lightly, "Watch the twins." Hot blood rushed to Lana's cheeks. The phrase was barely legible, but undeniable. Hawthorne had carved into the water pump, left a message. Watch the twins. Why twins? She had triplets. Was he referring only to two of her sons? Which ones? And why exclude the third? Marcy turned on the overhead light, the red glow waning. "That's all the prints," she said quietly. "I'm sorry. Some are too damaged to restore." Lana stared at them, breath shallow. "No, this is enough. This is everything." She stepped back, heart pounding. "We have to figure out who tried to burn these. And we have to find out what Hawthorne meant." Jack nodded. "We need to go back to Clear Creek, visit the archives. Maybe we can find local news on Hawthorne. If he was doing some investigation in '79, he might have written notes or someone in town printed something." Lana picked up the photos and slid them into a folder. "We should also go to the gas station. If Hawthorne photographed the boys there, maybe he left more evidence. And the fence, someone was trying to hide him. We need to find who." Marcy rested a hand on Lana's shoulder. "Be careful. Whatever you uncover, it sounds dangerous." Lana forced a nod, though fear fluttered in her chest. She clutched the folder to her chest as they left the studio. Outside, the sky was a bruised gray, storm clouds still clinging to the horizon. As they loaded into Jack's truck, Lana stared across the parking lot at the empty fields. Somewhere out there, a figure had watched her sons. Someone had been close enough to photograph them. Someone had tried to destroy the evidence. And Hawthorne, in his final days, left riddles instead of answers. They drove west, engines rumbling over cracked pavement. Lana's eyes traced the horizon, imagining the old gas station, boarded windows, an abandoned price sign creaking in the wind. She felt a cold dread. The next stop could be the most dangerous yet. But she could not turn back. 30 years of pain, 30 years of unanswered questions, rotted beneath her skin. She would not be deterred. Jack glanced at her. "We'll be okay," he said gently. "We'll find the truth." She nodded, though her chest felt tight. "We have to." She laid a hand over her heart, where the locket rested against her chest. Inside were the faces of Finn, Noah, and Sam, waiting for someone to piece together the final puzzle and find out what happened to them. As the truck sped down Highway 87 toward Clear Creek, lightning flashed in the west, followed by thunder that shook the cab. It was as if the past itself was protesting their intrusion. Yet they pressed on, unaware of the danger lurking just beyond sight, shadows that had remained dormant for 30 years, now stirring in the darkness. By late afternoon, Lana and Jack reached Clear Creek's outskirts. The intersection where the old gas station stood was now a tangle of scrub brush and rusted signposts. On its highest remains clung a crooked wooden sign, Creekside Service, EST 1954, once perched atop a tall metal pole, The sign now lay face down in the dirt, its paint chipped and unreadable. Yellowed boards nailed across the front windows bore jagged nail heads and graffiti. Leave this place alone and spirits drown here. A broken tire lay, half submerged in a ditch. The air tasted of dust and decay. Lana and Jack climbed out of the truck. She pulled the folder of photographs from the passenger seat and stared at the gas station's facade. It looked like the skeleton of a building, dead and forgotten. But in June of 1979, it had been a place of intrigue. According to the photos, Hawthorne had taken at least one shot of her sons there, capturing them by the pump. That image had remained hidden, burned into a negative and tossed aside. Now it felt like a ghost beckoning them forward. Jack walked to the front of the station, pushing at a loose board. It resisted at first, then swung inward. Dust billowed like smoke as he pushed the board aside. He turned, beckoning Lana. It's unlocked. She swallowed, her pulse quickening. They slid inside. The air was stifling, thick with the smell of old gasoline and rot. Wooden floorboards creaked beneath their feet. In dim light, pistons and engine parts lay scattered, remnants of a life once fueled by gasoline and conversation. The pump behind them was still, its hose coiled like a giant snake. A faded price board hung overhead, its numbers long since stripped and replaced with random scrawl. Lana pulled her camera from her bag and slid a memory card inside. She began taking photos, logging every angle. If someone's been here recently, we need evidence, she murmured. Jack walked to the back wall, where marble-coated tiles still clung near the floor. He brushed dust away to reveal faint graffiti. Hawthorne, watch the twins. The words had been carved in chipped tile, rough letters etched into the glaze. Lana felt a shiver. Watch the twins, the same phrase carved under the water tower, now repeated here. She took a photo of the message. Jack pointed to something on the floor near the pump nozzle, a rusted metal key chained to a ring of frayed rope. The key was large, its teeth worn. This might open the storage shed out back, he said. Let's search. They exited through the smashed back door and found a small storage shed leaning at a precarious angle. Vines snaked across its walls. Jack tried the key in the padlock. It clicked. He gave Lana a nod, and she helped push the door open. Inside, they found dusty shelves holding old oil cans, cracked toolboxes, and a stack of crates. Behind the crates was a metal trunk, identical to the one in Hawthorne's Amarillo house, but this one was sealed with a heavy padlock of tarnished iron. Lana knelt, examining the lock. We need bolt cutters, she said. I doubt this key opens everything. Jack looked around. I'll open my truck. Maybe I have a tool. He jogged back to the truck, disappearing around the side. Lana knelt before the trunk, heart pounding. She ran her fingers over its surface. Faint chalk markings, June 22nd, 1979, pumped here. Maybe Hawthorne had stashed something here the day the boys vanished. Jack returned with a crowbar from the toolbox. He wedged it under the lock and gave a lever. The padlock groaned, then snapped open. They lifted the lid together. Inside lay a bundle of notebooks wrapped in oilcloth, a wooden box with compartments stained with dark spots, and a small stack of negatives tied loosely with twine. Lana picked up the top notebook, leather-bound, its cover weathered. She gingerly opened the first pages full of sketches, drawings of 3 boys near the pump, labeled Finn, Noah, Sam. She flipped a few pages, sketches of the fence of the picnic, margins scribbled with notes, figure with hat. Cleric. Drifter. If local, why unknown? If outsider, why silent? Next, a series of jottings. Need to ask Jenny Marks. She saw a man ask about Abbott House June 19th. Maybe father refused interview. Below was a hastily drawn map, the entire town of Clear Creek, scribbled in blue pencil. The gas station was circled. An arrow pointed from the station to a location marked Old Way Station North. Another arrow pointed to Lakeshore. Suddenly a tangent note. Jack Abbott visited June 18th. Could he be passing intel? Must interview. Lana looked up at Jack. He interviewed my husband on June 18th. Jack shrugged, confused. I was there for oil business, cleanup permits. I didn't see anyone. Lana flipped through more pages. The next entry was dated June 19th, 1979. Spoke with Jenny Marks. She saw a man, broad shoulders, hat, asking locals about triplets. Said he was researching local folklore. Maybe linked to disappearance. Call him. Another entry, June 20th. Met Abbott family at picnic. Took photo of boys and watcher in trench coat. He vanished before I could interview. Sat near church after, no sign. They left picnic early. Could be protective of children. Lana's breath caught. Hawthorne had been actively investigating her sons, taking notes, questioning locals, examining her husband. But who had he thought she or Jack would talk to? And why vanish? She traced a thumb over the map, a place labeled Way Station, off Highway 87. The road to the north, hidden behind a bend, led to an old structure, a way station for trucks that had long since been abandoned. She looked up at Jack. He must have gone there next. June 21st or early 22. If we follow his path, we might find more clues. Jack nodded. We'll head there next. Maybe he stashed evidence there too. Lana lifted a bundle of negatives from the trunk, older than the ones in the studio. She counted them, 15 negatives, carefully numbered by hand, W1 through W15. She thumbed through the wooden box beside them. Inside were small glass slides, each with a number etched on the corner, G1 through G10. The slides depicted nothing but trees, sky, a man in a hat standing behind the way station. Hawthorne again, camera raised. In some, she glimpsed her boys standing near a fence behind the way station, faces uplifted, laughing. In others, they were closer to her, running down a dirt road toward the way station. The images were so clear, so vivid, as though time had folded in upon itself. How did he capture them here? Lana wondered. We thought he only photographed them at the picnic and the cookout. Jack ran a hand through his hair. This was the day before they vanished, June 21st. He tracked them here. She flipped the first negative, examining the numbers scratched into the border. Each had markings, way station. 1979, she opened the wooden box's lid and gasped. There, tucked into a corner, was a small Polaroid, partially melted at one edge. It showed 3 indistinct shapes huddled around a glowing light, like a lantern, inside the way station's back room. The boys older, but still wearing those unmistakable matching trunks. They seemed to be looking at something, maybe a map or an object. And behind them, a shadow loomed, tall, slender, hat brim low. Her heart squeezed. That must have been taken late on June 21st. The boys were alive that night, inside the way station. But what were they doing there? And who was the figure with them? Jack reached over, fingertips brushing the melted edge. This looks burned, like someone tried to destroy it. Lana nodded, stomach nodding. Someone wanted to erase this. But they missed a spot. She slipped the Polaroid into the folder. We need to develop these negatives tonight again. But this time, look for images inside the way station. If there's a back room, maybe there's more evidence. Jack stared at the photographs. We should also go to the way station. See if the building still stands, if there are hidden rooms. Lana inhaled, blinking back nausea. Let's focus on what we can confirm. Hawthorne followed the boys from your house to the picnic, to my backyard, to the gas station, then to the way station. This was a planned investigation. We need to reconstruct his Tim Finn. Jack squeezed her hand. We will. June 17th to 18th, 2009. Clear Creek, Abbott House. Late that night, Lana and Jack sat hunched over a dining room table. Jack poured cups of coffee while Lana sorted the negatives into chronological order. The Polaroid from the pump house sat in the center, an anchor. To its left, the negatives from the picnic and cookout. To its right, the negatives from the gas station and way station. Jack said, I called Alex at the archives. He's pulling old newspapers and diaries from 1979. Tomorrow we'll go through microfiche and town logs. Maybe find Hawthorne's name. Lana nodded, pinning the Polaroid of Hawthorne at the pump house to a corkboard. We also need to figure out what memories drown in flame meant. Could be the old grain silo on Miller Road. That burned down in 81. It was near a pond. Jack rubbed his eyes. Could be. But we'll need to follow every lead. She sank back in her chair, exhaustion tugging at her. I keep seeing my boys in those pictures. At the way station Polaroid, they're holding something. Maybe a picture. A piece of paper. Jack poured sugar into his coffee. Whatever it is, it might be the key. But we need to find out who that figure is. He's in every shot, lurking behind. Lana wrapped her fingers around her coffee mug, staring into its dark surface. Do you think Hawthorne was trying to protect them, capture evidence that someone was stalking them? Or was he stalking them himself? A cold shiver ran down her spine. He definitely found something. He carved messages, watched the twins. I see, lips lie. These aren't riddles, they're warnings. She rubbed her temples. But warnings for whom? Jack's voice was soft. Maybe warnings for you. Or for whoever might come across these images. She stared at the corkboard, seeing the nanny racing across the lawn, the boys at the pump station, the fence with the figure. The messages scratched into the tower. It was as though Hawthorne had witnessed something sinister unfold and tried to stop it. Too late. But if Hawthorne had been following his own trail, what ended him? He disappeared after June 22nd. Did someone kill him? Or did he flee? His notebook implied fear. But was that fear for his life or fear for her boys? Jack squeezed her hand. We'll find out. She nodded, though her heart felt heavy as chains. The weight of the past pressed on her. She felt closer than ever to unearthing the truth, but also closer to danger she didn't yet understand. As the clock in the hallway struck 2 a.m., Lana finally set down her coffee mug. We should sleep, she said. Tomorrow will be long. Jack stood, pulling the folder close. I'll stay up a bit longer, run these negatives through the scanner on my laptop. Maybe we can see hidden details before bed. Lana climbed the stairs to the bedroom, footsteps echoing on the wooden floors. In the hallway, she glanced at the family photograph on the wall. Jack, her, and the boys on the day of their birthdays in 1978. She reached out, tracing the boys' faces with her fingertip. She whispered, "Soon, my darlings. Soon I'll find you." And for the first time in years, she fell into a deep sleep, the burden of unanswered questions finally giving way to exhaustion. June 18th, 2009, 7:30 a.m., Abbott House kitchen. Lana awoke to sunlight leaking through the curtains. Her head throbbed. Beneath her pillow, her phone buzzed with a text. Alex, met with you in 15. Newspaper office. She sighed, dragging herself into the shower. By 8:30 a.m., she and Jack sat in a cramped office behind the Clear Creek Gazette. Stacks of newspapers from 1979 lined the walls, bound in yellowed plastic. Alex, a thin man with spectacles and a tuft of gray hair, offered them coffee. Morning, he said. I have microfiche machines warmed up. Let's see if we can find any mention of Hawthorne or anything unusual around these dates. Lana and Jack sat side by side. Lana slid the Polaroid from Hawthorne at the pump house across the desk. We need to see local coverage from June 1979. Anything on a photographer? Anything on the gas station, the way station, anything related to our case? Alex nodded. He placed a newspaper from June 20th, 1979, on a microfiche reader. Let's start here. June 20th, the day of the picnic. See if they mentioned a photographer. They scrolled through the images. The front page headline read, "Summer Jubilee Draws Hundreds." A small caption read, "Photographer on site L. Hawthorne, amateur shutterbug known for local event coverage." The article's author wrote briefly of how Hawthorne had set up a small folding table at the side of the square, shooting Polaroids to give away to families. He had become something of a minor celebrity. Local kids lined up for instant photos. Lana met Jack's eyes, heart thudding. So he was there that day, openly photographing families, she whispered. Alex pointed to a section, here third column. Under community news, Hawthorne seen photographing Abbott family's triplets. No comment from Mr. Abbott. Lana leaned forward. There was black and white print. June 20th, 1979. Hawthorne's camera captured entering the Abbott property through backyard fence. No explanation given. Jack's hand found Lana's. That's the fence photo. Alex scrolled to the next day, June 21st. Palomino Gazette. Abbott's report bizarre occurrence at fossilized gas station off Highway 87. Local photographer L. Hawthorne claims he spotted triplets playing near disused pump. Fear rising over rumored hauntings. Lana's breath hitched. They had never heard of this article. Bizarre occurrence, she asked. It goes on, Alex said. One local referenced hearing children's voices coming from inside the station late night. Hawthorne, acting on suspicion, spent hours photographing the building. He claimed to have seen an apparition peeking through a boarded window. He left town soon after. She stared at him. So he'd already seen something supernatural? And that's why he went to Amarillo. Alex frowned. The article implies he was spooked. No mention of why he went to Amarillo. But if he felt threat, maybe he headed there looking for answers. Or to hide evidence. Jack scrolled to June 22nd. No mention of Hawthorne. Instead, the paper says, local gardener, Mrs. Abbott, seeks investigation into missing children. Searching for clues, but no follow-up. Lana closed the microfiche viewer, sinking back in her chair. Why wasn't there more coverage? Our boys were missing. It should have been all over the state. Alex shrugged. Clear Creek was small. Once initial interest waned, the bigger newspapers lost interest. Most stories died after a week. Jack exhaled. So Hawthorne got spooked, moved on, but hid something here in Clear Creek. Lana flipped through a related article about the old way station. It says the station closed in 1967 because it was too near the water table. Some said the site caused sickness in livestock, something about ghosts of drowned workers. She paused, which ties into Hawthorne's notes. Memories drown in flame. Could be the water table, the fire from the way station's incinerator. If he thought the place was haunted, he might have tried to expose something supernatural. Alex leaned forward. If it was a ghost story, why take my boys there? Lana shook her head. He was documenting their last day alive. Maybe he wanted to show someone, convince someone that something otherworldly was happening. Then someone silenced him, burned his negatives. Jack said, "We need to get back to those negatives. See if there's anything on the back. Writing, numbers, hidden details. We might uncover a location." Lana nodded. "I want to focus on the way station now." Let's go. June 18th, 2009, 11 a.m., Clear Creek, Highway 87 Way Station. They drove back to the way station, arriving at a fork where a gravel road led north. The road was narrow, overgrown with sagebrush on each shoulder. In the distance, the way station rose like a ghost. Corrugated metal walls rusted in bands of orange. The roof sagged in the middle. A collapsed awning cast angular shadows on the cracked pavement. Barbed wire drooped from twisted poles. The way scale, once a large concrete slab, had crumbled, weeds sprouting through fissures. A single oil drum lay, overturned near the entrance. Lana and Jack parked by an old cedar post, its wood bleached by sun. They approached cautiously, hearts pounding. The silence was profound. No bird call, no wind, only the distant hum of insects. Jack shone a flashlight into the entrance. Darkness reclaimed the interior. He ducked under a low door frame and motioned for Lana to follow. They stepped into a cavernous space. Dust floated in the beam of their lights. Old oil stains marked the floor where trucks once paused. Machinery lay half buried under plywood. The walls were lined with peeling paint and drainage pipes that ran into a pit at the back. "Look," Jack whispered, pointing to a door behind a stack of pallets. "Back room." They tiptoed across the floor, avoiding broken glass. The door creaked as Jack pushed it open. Inside was a small office, a desk littered with yellowed papers, a rusted metal filing cabinet with one drawer hanging open, and a sink beneath a grimy window. The desk's top held a series of notebooks, fragments of Hawthorne's journals, and a battered Polaroid camera. Lana knelt, fingers trembling, picking up a sheet of typewritten paper, labeled Confidential Project IC. "Do not remove." At the bottom was a faint signature, CH, June 21st, 1979. She sank to her knees. "I see." Must be what he called his investigation. Jack found a manila folder in the open drawer. Inside were press clippings about hauntings, stories from 1967 about livestock dying near the station, reports of phantom cries late at night. One article said, 3 teenage boys disappeared in 1962 from local pond, last seen near way station. Lana looked up sharply. 3 boys in 1962. The same pond near here. Jack nodded. "Yes. They went to swim after school. Never came back. They called it suicide at the time, but locals swore they heard screaming." Lana's chest tightened. That was 17 years before ours vanished. If Hawthorne knew about that, maybe he would have prevented my boys ran into the same fate. But the photos show them alive that night. He captured them by the glowing light. Maybe they found something. She pointed to a map pinned to the wall, tattered and stained. It showed the way station, a nearby pond, and a patch of land marked Mine Shaft. A red arrow from the way station led to the pond. Memories drowned in flame could refer to the mine shaft collapsing, fires from mining operations, and the water of the pond. Something had died there. Jack flipped through another notebook. Hawthorne's script ran wild across the page. June 21st. Found boys playing near pond. Saw a reflection in water, faces floating. They moved toward shaft entrance. Warned them to stay back. Must follow them, document. I fear for their lives. Lana's throat tightened. He saw them by the pond. Then they approached the mine shaft. Jack turned a page. Another entry, June 21st, 11:47 p.m. Boys disappeared near shaft. I saw something in the reflection, something that looked like flames beneath water. Must find evidence before dawn. Warning, someone is watching me. Lana faltered. So Hawthorne followed them that night. Tried to intervene. They stared at the notebook in silence. The weight of it pressed in. If Hawthorne had seen her sons move toward the shaft, somewhere near the pond, What did he discover? Was it something supernatural? Flames flickering beneath water? And what was hiding in that mine? She closed her eyes, picturing Finn, Noah, Sam running along the creek, chasing each other. The last glimpse she had of them was in the Polaroid, smiling, unaware of the danger. Jack pulled her arm gently. We need to find that shaft. If Hawthorne went down there, maybe there's answers. She nodded, wiping tears. Lead the way. June 18th, 2009, 1 p.m., Clear Creek, mine shaft entrance. Following the map from the office, they retraced Hawthorne's path, past the way station to a dirt trail that descended into a shallow gulch. Sagebrush gave way to scrub oak and overgrown grass. In 20 minutes, they found the edge of the pond, dark, still water reflecting the sky. On the far side, a nearly invisible iron grate lay, half submerged on a bank. The map indicated a collapsed mine shaft under the water's surface. Lana knelt, peering into the pond. Sunlight glinted on something metallic beneath the ripples. She whispered, "There's something shimmering." Jack waded into the water, pulling a length of rope from his backpack. He fixed one end to a nearby tree and tied the other around his waist. He submerged into the cold water up to his waist, then reached toward the grate. The temperature dropped. Goosebumps formed on his skin. Finally, he freed the grate and hauled it to the shore. Underneath lay a rusted ladder, descending into darkness. The entrance to the shaft was partially submerged, water lapping at the edges. Jack shone his flashlight down the shaft. Only darkness glared back. Lana knelt, carefully moving aside debris. Half buried in mud was a rusted hinge, the remains of a metal trapdoor Hawthorne must have tried to shove aside. Beneath it, she glimpsed dark water swirling. The shaft is flooded. Maybe Hawthorne tried to pump it out. Jack called down in a whisper, "I'm going in." He paused. "Be careful." She swallowed. "I'll follow." Jack climbed down first, holding the flashlight between his teeth. Water rushed around his thighs. He waded deeper, chest deep. Then a pair of footsteps resounded further down the rungs. Lana stared at the ladder, heart pounding. She gripped the side, cold metal biting into her fingers, and descended carefully. Each rung felt slippery, coated in slime. The water reached her waist quickly. Dim beams of sunlight above vanished as she dipped below. The ladder ended just above a submerged tunnel. Jack shone his light ahead. The tunnel was narrow, curved, disappearing into inky darkness. Water lapped around his chest. He held out an arm. It's shallow, maybe waist deep further in. Lana took a breath and stepped from the ladder onto a submerged wooden walkway. The wood groaned beneath her. She advanced slowly. Water raced around her legs. The faint echo of dripping water reverberated. "In here," Jack whispered, voice distorted underwater. He beckoned. "There's a doorway ahead." Lana moved toward the faint glow of his flashlight. The tunnel ended in a low brick archway. Under barely a foot of water lay a collapsed lantern, half buried in mud. Rusted buckets and broken timbers littered the floor. She shone her light to the right. There was a ledge, a narrow, dry ledge running beneath a partially collapsed ceiling. On that ledge was something, a small object glowing faintly in the beam, a metal box stained with rust. The lid was bashed open. She waded toward it, chest aching as water rose. In the box lay a Polaroid, its edges curled, soaked. She clamped her hand over her mouth as she lifted it. The image was blurred, 3 silhouettes huddled around a small fire pit inside the shaft, faces obscured, but the glow from the fire cast long shadows. In the flames, she thought she saw her son's tiny, flickering outlines. But the photo's paper was almost dissolved. Underneath, she spotted a small notebook, pages torn and soaked. Jack reached for the notebook. He lifted it carefully, fingertips trembling. The pages were waterlogged, ink run into blotches. He brushed a few pages. A fragment of text emerged. The twins' faces shine in water. I can't tell which is Finn, which is Noah. Sam stands apart, reflections fade. I heard them whisper names of those who died. Something moves under the pond. They saw it, but as dawn came, I lost them. Must secure conclusions. His voice shook. He never wrote what he saw. He lost them in the shaft. We need to find what he meant by twins. Why did he single them out? Lana's mind reeled. He must have thought two of them had a different destiny. Or something about them changed when they saw the reflection. She snapped a photo of the blurred Polaroid in the box. We can try to enhance this. Maybe see the faces. Jack slid the notebook into a sealed bag from his backpack. He knelt, gently grabbing the metal box. He left this for us, his final clue. This was his last stop. As they turned to exit, the tunnel behind them rumbled with a sickening crack. Blinding light burst through a crack above. The shaft's roof shifted, sending a cascade of water and debris in their direction. Jack grabbed Lana's arm, pulling her away from the ledge. They stumbled as a rush of water cascaded, filling the tunnel swiftly. They scrambled for the ladder, voices drowned by the roar. Jack reached the ladder and hauled Lana up. She gripped the rungs, teeth chattering. The water rose fast, nearly reaching her chin as she climbed. When they finally emerged into the daylight, gasping for breath, the shaft entrance behind them collapsed with a thunderous crash. A cloud of dust and debris billowed upward, choking the air. Jack yanked Lana away from the collapse, pulling her to solid ground. Lana's heart raced. She looked back at the shaft entrance, now sealed by earth and rubble. Whatever had been inside was buried again, hidden from sight. She shivered, half from cold, half from adrenaline. He trapped it in there, or someone did. Jack wrapped his jacket around her shoulders. Yes, but we have Hawthorne's notebook, the Polaroids. We have enough to piece together what happened. She looked at the pond, the water now placid, everything nothing more than the whisper of waves against a broken ladder. She whispered, "We found it, but now it's gone." Jack held her close. "We'll find a way to reveal the truth. He left us clues for a reason." She gazed at the pond, tears welling. "We need to build a case, show the town, show the world. They can't bury this forever." Jack stroked her hair. "We'll start with the evidence. The negatives, the photos. Then we'll confront whoever else is involved." Lana nodded. "I think I know who else is involved. Those who tried to burn the negatives." She reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out the Polaroid from the way station back room, the one that Hawthorne held next to the water tower. She studied it, noting the face in the shadows. "I've always wondered if someone from Clear Creek recognized him. Maybe it's a relative of someone alive today." Jack frowned. "Someone powerful enough to silence Hawthorne." Lana's voice was cold. "Someone who's been hiding the truth since 1979. It's time to expose them." June 18th, 2009, 5 p.m., Abbott House kitchen. Back at home, Lana surveyed the chaos. The dining room table strewn with photographs, torn notebook pages, and illuminated printouts from Jack's laptop. Jack held a computer file scanned in digitally enhanced negatives, projected on a large monitor. He zoomed in on a particular frame, the triplets running along the creek toward the mine shaft. In the background, nearly hidden by reeds, was the same figure, face partially illuminated by moonlight. They zoomed again, the face sharpened, thin cheeks, narrow eyes, a small scar across the left bony cheek. Familiar, but from where? Lana entered a name into her phone search bar, Sheriff Bradley Carver. She scrolled through an old staff directory scan from Clear Creek's police records. Sure enough, Bradley Carver, sheriff's deputy from 1975 to 1984, left the force after the triplets disappeared. His photo was grainy, but the scar matched. Then she found an obituary. Bradley Carver passed away, Amarillo, 1992. She stared, breath caught. He died in 92. But his son would be how old now? 35. Jack peered over her shoulder. If Carver was involved in covering up something, his family might still live here. They might know something. Lana exhaled. The deputy. He was in charge of the disappearance investigation. She closed her eyes. He must have been the one who tried to destroy the negatives. He could have told Hawthorne to back off or paid someone to burn his evidence. Jack sat, eyes grim. If Carver's family still lives here, they might be watching us. Lana nodded. We have to move fast. I want to confront Sheriff Ross, Bradley Carver's replacement. See if he knows anything. Meanwhile, we'll get these images to a forensic team, professionals who can analyze every brushstroke, every burned edge. See who tried to destroy them. Jack stood and tossed the Polaroid onto the table. Right? We'll arrange that. And I'll work on contacting the archives in Amarillo. Maybe find Carver's family tree. But first, we need to keep this evidence safe. Lana said, I'll hide copies of these images off-site. Maybe at Marcy's studio. And we should prepare a statement, present to the town when we're ready. We need to get ahead of any attempt by Carver's family to discredit us. She felt adrenaline surge through her veins. The house felt alive, charged with purpose. For 30 years, she had searched for answers. Now she was closer than ever. Every puzzle piece she uncovered only sharpened the outline of a conspiracy that had burrowed into Clear Creek's roots. But for the first time, she believed she could unravel it. She lifted the Polaroid of the 3 silhouettes around the lantern in the way station's back room. The edges were charred, blurred, but the image burned into her mind, her boys on the brink of something beyond comprehension, and behind them, that same figure, Deputy Carver, watching. Lana met Jack's gaze. Tomorrow we begin. He nodded, placing a gentle kiss on her cheek. Tomorrow we finish. As they left the kitchen to prepare for the next steps, thunder rumbled far off in the distance, echo of the weight of secrets about to break. In the attic, the Polaroids lay pinned to the corkboard, staring back at them like silent witnesses, waiting for the final act of revelation. In the early hours of June 19, 2009, Lana lay awake on the couch, insomnia creeping in. Moonlight filtered through the window, casting pale rectangles across the floor. The house was still. Only the hum of the refrigerator and the distant rumble of thunder disturbed the quiet. She clutched the locket at her chest, feeling the cold metal against her skin, and pictured her boys, Finn, Noah, Sam, running barefoot on the dusty ground, laughing as they chased each other. She rose, drawn to the corkboard in the hallway. Her footsteps were silent on the hardwood as she crossed to the board, studying the photographs pinned there. The picnic shot with the watcher behind the fence, the cookout shot with a fleeting shadow at the oak tree, the gas station shot echoing ghost stories, the way station shot of the final lantern, and the image of Hawthorne at the pump house, defiant despite the storm. The last 3 decades lay before her in faded color and black and white tangibility. She gently lifted the Polaroid of the last scene. 3 figures huddled around flickering light, her sons and the watcher lurking behind. She held it up to the moonlight. In the glow, she saw a shape flicker in the water beneath, shapes that looked like faces. She felt her heart reel. The image wasn't just what it seemed. What if the flames beneath water were real? She shivered, backing away. The moonlight seemed to darken, as though aware of her thoughts. She replaced the photo on the board and sighed, returning to the couch. Sleep evaded her as the hours passed. June 19, 2009, 8 a.m., Abbott House kitchen. At dawn, Jack sat at the table, newspapers and printouts strewn in front of him. He had a hot mug of coffee in hand, eyes fixed on an article from the Amarillo Gazette, online archives printed at his request. He looked up as Lana entered. "I found something," he said, voice low. In the article's corner was a tribute. Bradley Carver, former deputy of Clear Creek County, died 1992. Survived by wife Margaret, sons Dean and Patrick. Lana's pulse rattled. He died of an accidental drowning in Lake Texoma, but locals suspected foul play. They said he fell, but nobody saw it. She paused. His family stayed in Clear Creek until the early 90s, then they moved to Amarillo. Margaret died in 2003. Dean later moved to Houston. Patrick stayed in Amarillo. If either is alive, they might hold pieces of the truth. Jack tapped a finger on the desk. "Check this. An article about Dean's wedding in 1989 mentions his father helping with the ceremony. But Patrick's name surfaces in a local bar fight in 95. Seems he was involved with some rough crowd." Lana rubbed her temples. Maybe Patrick knows more. While Dean stayed quiet, Patrick might have been close to his father's secrets. Jack frowned. "We need to find them. But approach carefully. If one of them covered up something, we can't trust them." Lana stared at the photos pinned to the corkboard. Each told a fragment of a story, exposing a child near danger, a photographer recording it, a deputy watching. Now, Carver was the man behind the scenes at every step. He followed the boys from the picnic to the gas station to the way station, captured their final moments, burned the evidence. But why? And who had he been protecting? His notes hinted jealousy, fear, something darker. Lana took a deep breath. "First, let's gather our evidence. We'll take it to a forensic analyst to confirm these photos. Then we'll visit Sheriff Ross. If Carver's family used influence, maybe Ross knows more. And finally, we confront Patrick." Jack nodded. "Agreed." She poured coffee for both of them. "Ready?" He raised his mug. "Let's finish this." June 19th, 2009, 10 a.m., Amarillo, Forensic Imaging Lab. They arrived at the sterile, brightly lit lab. White walls, high ceilings, and rows of computers greeted them. A woman in a crisp lab coat introduced herself as Dr. Emily Sawyer, an expert in art restoration and photographic forensics. "I'll be analyzing these photographs and negatives," Dr. Sawyer explained, setting up a large light table. "We'll look at burn patterns, etching marks, chemical residues, anything to tell us how these images were damaged and by whom." Lana placed the photos on the table. The charred discount gas station Polaroid, the scratched negatives from the picnic, the partially dissolved Polaroid of Hawthorne, and the way station lantern image. Dr. Sawyer studied each under a microscope. "Fascinating," she murmured. "On these negatives, there's evidence of defibrate acid application. Someone used a tannic acid solution to dissolve silver particles. And on this Polaroid, mirror characteristic scorching, likely from a lighter or small torch. It suggests someone wanted to destroy specific areas of the image, precise, targeted." Jack frowned. But who would have access to this acid solution in 1979? Dr. Sawyer tapped on her keyboard, pulling up period chemical catalogs on screen. Tannic acid was used in agriculture as a pesticide, commonly available in bulk. However, the specific additive used here, aniline dye, was a specialty chemical, harder to obtain without an industrial supplier. Lana exhaled. "Which means someone with connections, maybe a local doctor, farmer, someone with ties to a company." Dr. Sawyer nodded. "And the scorch patterns are unique. The way the edges curled indicates a handheld flame, like a small soldering torch. Not a candle." Jack asked, "So it was defibrate, but also hastily done, maybe under pressure." "Indeed. Whoever burned these had limited time and needed to remove specific details quickly. Dr. Sawyer leaned back. I can confirm these photos are authentic. There's no evidence of manipulation by modern techniques. These are genuine artifacts from 1979. And those scribbles on the water tower photo, you can see the slight depressions in the emulsion. Someone carved them deeply. It wasn't graffiti sprayed. It was physically etched. Lana closed her eyes, digesting. And you're sure about the acid residues? Dr. Sawyer placed a Polaroid into a spectral analyzer. Yes. This residue is from a solution consistent with common 1970s agricultural-grade tannic acid mixed with aniline dye. It corrodes silver. It was likely procured by someone with knowledge of photography and agriculture, someone like a sheriff's deputy in a rural area. Jack's jaw clenched. Carver had a small farm on the outskirts of town. He could have accessed these chemicals. Dr. Sawyer nodded. It fits. Moreover, I see impressions on this lantern photo that suggest someone tried to scratch out the figure's face, meaning the watcher behind your boys was a known person. Someone didn't want that face recognized. Lana's eyes filled. That was Bradley Carver. We confirmed it's him. Dr. Sawyer's tone was apologetic. I'm sorry you're going through this, but this evidence is clear. Someone powerful in the town, with a motive to hide the watcher's identity, destroyed these images. They didn't succeed fully, but there was intent. Lana placed a hand on the photographs. Thank you, Dr. Sawyer. We'll need full reports for our records, and if we publish this, I want everything documented. Dr. Sawyer gave a curt nod. I'll email you the reports by tomorrow morning. Good luck. As they gathered the photos, Lana felt a surge of determination. The forensic confirmation was what she needed. The identity of the watcher, Bradley Carver, was exposed. Now she had to confront his legacy, his family, and those who protected him. June 19, 2009, 2 p.m., Clear Creek, Sheriff Ross's office. Lana and Jack entered the sheriff's office, a modest building near the town square. Sheriff Leonard Ross, a tall, bespectacled man in his late 50s, looked up from a stack of files. His posture stiffened upon seeing Lana. Lana Abbott, he said curtly. I heard you'd be coming. She placed the folder of forensic reports on his desk. These photographs and negatives were defibrillately altered. The figure behind the boys at the picnic and the gas station is former Deputy Bradley Carver. He used chemicals and fire to destroy evidence. I want to know why the department never pursued this. Sheriff Ross's face darkened. He leaned back. Carver was a hero, never once suspected of wrongdoing. After the boys disappeared, he poured himself into the investigation. When no leads turned up, he withdrew. People in town blamed him for not finding them. Lana's voice trembled. But the records show he had evidence. He had access to your office's evidence room. He removed Polaroids and negatives. He orchestrated a cover-up. Ross rubbed his temples. I've been sheriff here since '86. Carver died in '92. I know nothing of this until now. If you think my department covered for him, you need proof. Lana slid the box of Polaroids across the desk. Here, the photographs escaped destruction. Dr. Sawyer confirmed the acid etching came from chemicals Carver's farm had. The scorch patterns are unique. And Carver's handwriting is on these notes. Watch the twins. I see lips lie. Why would he carve messages if he hadn't stumbled onto something dangerous? Ross opened the box carefully, pulling out the photographs and notes. He studied the scrap of paper with eyes see, lips lie. For a moment, he was silent. Why now? After all these years, she met his gaze. Because for 30 years, no one wanted to know. But now I have answers. And I want to know why no one pursued him for the sake of the boy's memory. Ross sighed heavily, leaning forward. You've got me in a bind. By the time I became sheriff, Carver was long gone. I kept the case file, but there was nothing, no evidence beyond witness statements. If you have something tangible, take it to the district attorney. I'll cooperate fully. Lana exhaled slowly. I will. But I want you to know that the truth matters to this town and to my son's memory. You can either be on the right side of history or the wrong side of a lie. Ross closed his eyes, nodding. Understood. I'll transmit these to the DA's office. I'll also open a formal inquiry. If Carver's family is withholding evidence, now is the time to speak up. Lana stood, her legs shaky. Thank you, Sheriff. For the first time, I feel like someone is listening. Ross watched her go, a conflicted expression on his face. The legacy of Carver cast long shadows over Clear Creek. Now that she had unearthed it, there was no turning back. June 19, 2009, 4 p.m., Houston, Dean Carver's residence. Meanwhile, over 200 miles away, Dean Carver sat in his polished brown leather chair, flipping through an old photo album. The front cover read, Abbott Family, 1979. He paused on a photo of his father, Deputy Bradley Carver, standing tall in uniform, a young badge glinting on his chest. Dean traced a finger over his father's smile. Bradley's eyes held a look of stern pride, a look Dean remembered clearly. But the weight of secrecy had haunted him since he discovered his father's hidden files in 1980. He closed the album, mind drifting. A sudden knock on the door jolted him. He rose, heart pounding. At the door stood two stern-faced detectives from the Clear Creek DA's office. They held a warrant. Dean's blood ran cold. He swallowed, trying to steady his voice. What is this? One detective slid the warrant under his nose. Mr. Carver, we're here to requisition any materials related to Bradley Carver and his investigation into the Abbott triplets' disappearance in 1979. You are required to surrender any photographs, letters, notebooks, anything related to his case. Dean's knees buckled. He stepped back. I don't know where most of that is. Dad died in 92. My mother died in 03. We moved out of Clear Creek soon after. I haven't seen anything in years. The detective produced a box. If you do find anything, contact us immediately. We have reason to believe some materials are still in circulation. Dean's mind spun. He ushered them inside, feeling the walls close around him. They searched the house, closets, old trunks, drawers, finally finding an old metal box in his study, identical to the ones described by Lana. Inside lay a battered notebook, Hawthorne's final journal, plus 3 photos. The picnic scene, the gas station scene, and the way station lantern scene, each marked with Carver's scrawled notes. The detectives weighed them in their gloved hands. Dean felt sick. These were hidden. I thought they were lost. Why? Why did you want these? The second detective replied, We have reason to believe these prove Bradley Carver hid evidence, possibly collaborated with someone to cover up your father's role. You need to tell us everything, you know. Dean's throat constricted. He hesitated. I'll cooperate. Anyone who touched these is dead. But I'll tell you what I remember. They escorted him outside, behind the house, where a small shed stood. Inside were canisters of old photographic chemicals, tannic acid, dyes, and various tools. The shed reeked of chemicals. Dean's chest tightened. He lowered his head, tears pooling in his eyes. All of it belonged to my father. Back in Clear Creek, news spread fast. By evening, whispers filled the town. Carver's son is cooperating. Photos are real. The Abbott boys finally have answers. June 19, 2009, 8 p.m., Clear Creek, Town Square. At dusk, Lana stood on the steps of the old town hall, heart racing as she faced a crowd of townspeople, neighbors, friends, journalists. In her hands, she held a folder containing the forensic reports, copies of photographs, and typed excerpts of Hawthorne's notebooks. At her side stood Jack and Sheriff Ross. Mayor Thompson, a rotund man in his 60s, stepped forward. Citizens of Clear Creek, we are gathered tonight to address the unresolved case of the Abbott triplets, missing since June 22, 1979. As some of you know, new evidence has come to light, photographs, documents, and witness statements implicating the late Deputy Bradley Carver in a cover-up of events surrounding the disappearance. Mrs. Abbott has requested to speak. Lana stepped onto the top step, trembling slightly but determined. She looked out at familiar faces, neighbors who had offered condolences in 1979, families with children now grown, reporters scribbling notes. Taking a steadying breath, she began, "My name is Lana Abbott. 30 years ago, I lost my 3 sons, Finn, Noah, and Sam, suddenly, inexplicably, on June 22, 1979. For 30 years, I searched for answers, where they were taken, what happened to them." She paused, wetness in her throat. "Last week, I found a photograph, a Polaroid from a town picnic showing my boys and a man standing behind a fence, watching them. That man was Deputy Bradley Carver." Murmurs ran through the crowd. A line of reporters raised microphones. Some faces turned pale, others averted their eyes. Lana held the bound folder up. "This folder contains evidence, photographs that show my children on the day they disappeared, grams of evidence that Carver themselves tried to destroy. Forensic analysis confirms the photographs were altered using specialized chemicals and flame, Finburate acts to hide the truth." Sheriff Ross stepped forward, lifting a laminated print of the picnic photo. "I have verified these images. I was not aware of them until recently. They reveal Carver's wrongdoing and prompt us to re-examine what happened that day in 1979. Lana continued, voice stronger now. "My sons were last seen near this town here and at a nearby abandoned gas station and way station. Deputy Carver followed them that day, took photographs of them in these locations, then destroyed evidence. I believe he acted to conceal something he found, something that led to my son's disappearance." A hush fell. Lana's voice grew steady with resolve. "His son Dean has cooperated, providing additional materials, Hawthorne's final journals and photographs. They show my boys near the mine shaft by the pond, the same mine that took the lives of 3 boys in 1962. According to those journals, there were unusual occurrences, flames beneath the water, whispers of lost souls. My sons were lured to that shaft. What they found remains unknown. But I stand before you to demand justice and truth, not only for my boys but for this community." Tears glistened in her eyes. "If there were other people involved, if anyone helped cover up crimes, now is the time to speak. We need answers." A flicker of shame passed across the mayor's face. "We are cooperating fully with the district attorney's office. An investigation is underway. I ask for patience as we bring closure to this tragic chapter of our town's history." Lana exhaled, stepping down. Journalists scrambled forward with cameras, capturing every moment. The townspeople whispered, staring at the photographs laid out on an easel, Carver's face behind a fence, the triplets at the gas station, Hawthorne at the pump house, the lantern image from the way station's back room. A man in the crowd spoke up, "Mrs. Abbott, what do you plan to do next?" She looked at him, voice resolute. "Find out who else was involved. I intend to pursue this until every person responsible is held accountable. And I want to locate my sons, wherever they may be." A pregnant silence settled, broken only by the distant rumble of thunder. The storm had returned, echo of the past reasserting itself. But this time, the storm was not one of loss but of revelation. For 30 years, the ghost had lingered. Tonight, they found a voice. As the crowd dispersed, Jack wrapped an arm around Lana. Sheriff Ross lingered, watching her, then retreated to make his formal report. Lana's eyes fell on the photographs. She felt a mixture of fear and dread. The searcher in her heart burned with purpose anew. She would not rest until every secret was laid bare. In the fading light, the photograph of the three silhouettes around the lantern, the last image of her sons alive, gleamed with promise, a witness to the truth. It was time to follow where it led. Years later, a memorial stands at the edge of the old mine shaft pond. A polished granite stone bears three small footprints etched into the surface, names inscribed beneath: Finn Abbott, Noah Abbott, Sam Abbott. Beside each footprint is a small basin designed to hold water, where children place coins in remembrance. At dawn, mist drifts across the pond, swirling like specters before dissolving in the morning sun. Lana visits weekly, wearing the silver locket with her sons' faces preserved inside. Jack joins her now and then, their hands entwined. Behind the memorial is a plaque recounting the events of June 1979, the arrival of Elle Hawthorne, the disappearance of the triplets, and the unveiling of Bradley Carver's crimes. The listing credits those who helped reveal the truth: journalists, forensic experts, and townspeople who refused to stay silent. Though the full details of what transpired in that abandoned mine remain faint, lost to charred negatives and water-ruined notebooks, the essential facts stand clear. Bradley Carver lured the boys to the mine that night, intending to use them as leverage in a desperate, misguided attempt to harness local legends for personal gain. Hawthorne, sensing something amiss, documented the truth but was silenced before he could expose Carver. Carver's family buried the evidence, and the town moved on until Lana unearthed the past. In the hush of evening, Lana stands by the pond's edge, watching the water glow with the setting sun. She thinks of Elle Hawthorne, the photographer who tried to protect her children. She envisions the three boys, now shadows cast upon water, dancing among flickers of light. She offers a silent prayer that they found peace in those final moments. She dips her hand into the basin, lets ripples swirl around a single silver coin. She smiles through tears. The truth was found. The memory remains. And the town, once marked by secrets, is now illuminated by truth. Behind her, the wind whistles across the plain, carrying the echo of a mother's vow I will never forget. And in that vow, the footprints and the pond and the memory of the lantern's glow become a testament that, though shadows may linger, light will always find its way.